You know, during my time, I keep hearing not all cops are like this. I think you know the kinds I'm talking about. The kind who like to break into houses, shoot family dogs, the kind who like to, wait for somebody to open the door without announcing who they are, then shoot them, stuff like, cops like that. And when you're confronted, when you say things like cops are pigs or cops are a menace, you have these people who come up and say, no, no, cops are like that. Not all cops are like that. Not all cops are like that. There are good cops. So I'm putting together this video to ask one good question that I think really does need to be addressed because I have never heard it addressed. Where are your good cops when this goes on? Where are your good cops to hold these bad cops accountable? And to emphasize my point, I'm going to tell you a couple of stories that I would love to know where these good cops are. The off-duty officer in... Alright. The off-duty officer is Detective Sergeant Scott Biumi of the DeKalb County Police Department. He approached an individual, 18-year-old Ryan Mash, and put a gun to his throat. The reason? The line was taking too long for the detective to get his food. Now, the detective was arrested and charged for such sickening acts. However, he was put on paid leave. How many of us would be even out of the slammer had we done this to someone? How many of us would actually be able to walk freely, yet he does because he's a police officer? Why aren't your good cops putting this sick freak back in prison? He got out of his car in a drive-thru and went and held a gun to a kid's throat because the line wasn't moving fast. What kind of sick fuck does that? And you're going to sit there and tell me that, well, it happens. Where are your good cops then? You feel safe with that guy walking on the street? Personally, I worry for the people of DeKalb County. I mean, this guy is sick. Who the hell does that? Yet they let him walk around. He ain't in jail right now. Alright, moving on. The Long Beach police say they were forced to open fire on Doug Zerby, a 30-year-old who committed the atrocious act of sitting on his neighbor's porch with a water nozzle. Yeah, I'm pretty sure you have all heard this story. Now, some of you were probably thinking that he shouldn't have been pointing the nozzle at the police, which is what they said. He pointed a nozzle like that at them. And that they were fully justified in their barrage that they unleashed upon Zerby. But consider this: police admitted that they never once even asking the accused to drop the alleged weapon. And even though they knew he was drinking, which can lead to very poor decision making. Even though they knew, the officers, instead of taking precautions to talk down the individual from discharging what they thought would be a firearm as police protocol, instead opened fire of their own and killed an innocent man. A life was lost because of poor judgment on part of the police department. According to the Gazette, on Thursday, Los Angeles District Attorney Steve Cooley announced that the officers would not press charges against the two officers. The office would not press charges against the two officers who shot Zerby, and claiming they acted reasonably at the time of the incident. Where are your good cops to hold these kind of officers accountable for the death of an innocent man whose only crime was sitting on a porch with a water nozzle? Where are your good cops then? Where are your good cops now, even? On the morning of July 10, 2011, officers from the Henderson Police Department responded to a domestic violence call at a neighbor's residence. The Mitchells say in their complaint. The Mitchells are the people who owned the house. Their next-door neighbors are the ones who the police were after. A defense officer, Christopher Worley, contacted the owner of the home, Anthony Mitchell, to use his home for a stakeout to gain a tactical advantage to his neighbor's house. When the resident refused the officer over the phone, the following plan was made by the police involved. It was determined to move to 367 Evening Side and attempt to contact Mitchell. If Mitchell answered the door, he would be asked to leave. If he refused to leave, he would be arrested for obstructing a police officer. If Mitchell refused to answer the door, forced entry would be made and Mitchell would be arrested. The police bashed the door and demanded the now scared man get down on the floor. After Mitchell failed to crawl the police, after he did get on the floor, putting his hands upon his head, they shot pepper ball rounds at him and his dog, later arresting him and his elderly parents, who tried to come to their son's aid, understandably, for obstructing justice. Obstructing justice how? Exactly. By refusing to allow officers onto his property? A right that all of us have when police do not have a warrant to take it? Or to come upon it? Free people have no obligation to allow authorities to use their property for government purposes, regardless of intent. And here's the best part. None of the officers were ever subjected to official discipline or even inquiry. Nothing. They break the, well, it's arguably breaking the Third Amendment, but they forced their way into somebody's house to confiscate it for their own uses. Yet nothing is done about it? Where are your good cops to punish these officers? Or is what they're doing okay because they're cops? I know if I did that, my shit would be thrown in a cage. So tell me, where are your good cops now? Where are your good cops to hold these officers accountable? Not only breaking and entering, but assaulting a man who lay helpless and defenseless on the floor. Where are your good cops when these men and women walk freely, with not even a slap on the wrist in terms of discipline? And last but not least, his 30-year-old Dustin Theoras slept in his bed. Two deputies broke into his rented room, and upon movement, he was shot 16 times. 16 times. There was a total of 20 shots fired. Amazingly enough, Theo Harris somehow survived the bombardment, as now receiving surgery for his jaw and all kinds of broken bones caused by the shots fired. The police department claimed that they are justified in the multiple shots because officers thought that Theo Harris was reaching for a gun. One of them was quoted as saying, I thought he was going to kill us. There was no greater level of threat, in an interview months later. Yeah, if I burst into someone's room unannounced with guns pulled on them, I'd feel pretty threatened too. True story. Some of you will say that justice is being served because the officers are handing over money to avoid litigation, up to the sum of $3 million. However, it isn't the good cops that are holding these two accountable. It is their victim. Had the victim died from the barrage of fire, would your good cops have arrested who'd opened fire? No, because they haven't done so yet. Where are your good cops to put these two psychopaths, shoot first, ask question later thugs behind bars? So no. Okay, you know what? So no. You know what? Fine. I'll concede it. I'll concede it. Not all cops are bad, and not all cops are like that. But the other cops you're talking about, turn a blind eye to them. They turn around and say, oh, well, what can you do? Why aren't your good cops protecting us from the bad cops? You wonder why a lot of us say fuck the police? Because when their own decide to commit crime, they, the good cops, turn a blind eye to it. There are very few who actually call them on it. Very few. And those officers have my respect, but that is not the majority. And you fucking know it. So before you go on a tirade of, they're good cops. No, cops are like that. Just remember that those cops are also the ones who, the majority of them anyway, who turn a blind eye to the bad cops who do. Have a nice day.